Yo, what's up, guys? I know it's been a while, like a while. Um, so much has happened over the past couple of months. Just been kind of going through some stuff personally. That's why I have been not, I guess you could say, motivated in making any wrestling videos. But I'm back making some wrestling videos. This one here, I'd probably say was probably one of the biggest news in wrestling so far this year. In particular, I would say the biggest news coming from AEW. News is a week old, but still pretty relevant. I just wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on it. I was going to give it right away, but I kind of wanted to wait till more more information came out before I spoke my piece about it. And that was Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes leaving AEW. This was a pretty big shock. I think this was a big. I don't know how big I would say a big of a blow to AEW, but yet it was really shocking because my personal thought was, at least that I felt that, for as long as AEW may last, say 10 years, maybe 15 years, hopefully. And for as many people that we will see come and go, even amongst the four EVPs, Cody was the one, to me, that seemed like he would have been the guy that would still be there. That he was one of the four cornerstones of the EVPs, as far as it's concerned, that will still be with the company through the good times and during the bad. Cody I just always had that thought, or that mind process. So to hear that Cody Rhodes and Tony Khan could not come to an agreement with, I guess they couldn't come to a certain term, was shocking. Cody Rhodes is a guy that I would say I was never really a fan of in WWE, but I grew to become a fan of Cody once he left WWE, because he kind of really took his own career, his own destiny, and molded it into his own. And I became a fan. Again, not a huge fan, but definitely a fan. His post WWE career minus, his career in WWE. I think Cody has done a lot of great stuff in reinventing himself and going on to, not only reinventing himself, but to be, I guess you could say, a founder of a new wrestling promotion, an alternative that we haven't had since, WCW almost, 20 some years ago, maybe a little bit over 20 years ago. But it's so to see him leave was kind of shocking. It came out that apparently Cody Rhodes had been working with AEW for 6 weeks without being signed at all. He was already the TNT champion, leading into his ladder match with Sammy Guevara. But Cody was working. Negotiations were still ongoing. But other than that, Cody Rhodes was still a free agent, pretty much, working for AEW. And basically the main reason of, Cody not coming to terms, it's believed it came out that money was an issue, as well as creative freedom. Or maybe not creative freedom, but creative differences. Because if you remember, back in late 2019, Tony Khan, there was an episode of Dynamite that was poorly received from fans, at least the ending of it. And going into the following year of 2020, it was said that Tony Khan had took over a majority of creativity and booking for AEW, whereas before, the other four EVPs, they had some creative input, but they had a lot more then than they do now, and that Tony Khan just kind of took over the reins at that point and has decided to book AEW and be more involved with AEW in its booking and its creative decisions. And one of the biggest things that Cody has always prided prided himself on since leaving WWE was having that creative freedom, having, as the way he put it in an interview, writing or singing a song to his own tunes, not having someone write for him. So I think that was probably the biggest thing. Money, I'm sure, is definitely a thing. I mean, let's be honest here. Tony Khan has been writing the checkbooks for a lot of wrestlers coming in recently. I mean, we just got 2 new signings within a 2-week span, or 2-3 week span. We've got 2 new signings, and Buddy Murphy and Keith Lee, and that'll be a conversation from the video I will be making. But the point is that Tony Khan's writing out the checkbooks. I'm pretty sure guys like CM Punk are expensive, which I heard Punk is on a $3 or $5 million deal with AEW. I think we know Daniel Bryan is also probably expensive, one of the top paying guys in that company. So I'm sure Cody looks at this and says, "Hey, I'm an EVP. I'm one of the co-founders. Give me a bump up in pay." And for as much as I like Cody Rhodes, and again, I think Cody Rhodes has improved greatly since leaving WWE and everything that he's done, and I really admire his entrepreneurship goals and journey that he's taken since leaving WWE. Cody Rhodes is not CM Punk or Daniel Bryan top dollar type of talent. Can he be a player? Sure. But is Cody the player? No. And that's despite, like I said, me have grown to become a fan of his over the last 3 years, or maybe not even 3 years, but 4 or 5 since he's been gone from WWE. But my point is that this was shocking. This was definitely shocking. Not only Cody's gone, but his wife as well, Brandy Rhodes as well. It also came out that Cody Rhodes, Tony Khan had the option to renew Cody's contract for another year, but decided not to. I also thought that was kind of interesting, that he had the option to renew it, but he didn't. Other wrestlers like the Young Bucks, Adam Page, and I believe someone else, not Kenny Omega, because Kenny Omega did mention this as well. But the Bucks and Adam Page and someone else, Khan had the option to renew their contracts. He already renewed their contracts for like another 2 years. Had the same option for Cody, but didn't do it. Something's not right there to me. I don't know what I don't know. Let me not say that something's not right there, but I find it very interesting that he had the option to renew Cody, but he didn't. Both Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes had put out open statements about both parties departing ways. Both had nice things to say. However, it also kind of came out or speculated that both Tony Khan and Rhodes have come to a verbal and handshake agreement not to discuss the real reason why Cody departed from AEW. This even includes Dustin Rhodes, Cody's brother, from talking about his brother's departure. So I find that also very interesting. There were also reports of, Cody Rhodes kind of having maybe some creative beef or differences with the other EVPs, being, the elite guys, the Bucks and Omega, which we kind of saw on TV, because there was a point when you watched AEW, like in year 2, Cody Rhodes was just kind of like separate. Everyone had their own separate storylines and doing their own separate things. And then after a while, Kenny Omega, once he turned heel and became champion, he kind of integrated with the Young Bucks, and they came together and formed the Super Elite. And then Cody was yet still just kind of like the odd man out. Cody was still kind of like in his own separate like lane on the show. Like, he had his thing on the show, and that was it, and it was separate from the others, the other elite guys. So there was speculation that there was some differences there, and I think even Cody had came out and said, "Hey, there's no problems with us." But Kenny Omega had an interview with Wrestling Observer, and Omega kind of spoke on some things. I think kind of shed some lights on some of those rumors. Kenny Omega talked about and said that what he had envisioned for wrestling, what he envisions wrestling to be, kind of falls in line with the Young Bucks. And Omega said that what Cody envisions for wrestling and what he sees wrestling being in the future and what it is now today, the vision it differs from he and the Bucks. And I thought that was interesting because to me, I think that spoke volumes of those rumors that we were hearing a year prior about there being creative differences, and Cody kind of wasn't getting along with the elite guys. And again, like I said, you see in the show that Cody's stuff is booked completely separately. It's like Cody was booking his own stuff compared to the elite guys, and you saw that it was apparent. So hearing Kenny Omega talk about that a little bit kind of allude to that, and Omega said, look, there were no problems or no issues with him and the elite guys and Cody, but there were some creative differences in what or visions in what the three of them thought wrestling should be versus what Cody thought. And so you kind of have to go back to the drawing board and try to find a middle ground and where both parties can coexist pretty much. And obviously Tony Khan being the one who makes the final decisions on all of this. I found it very interesting. I think Cody Rhodes being gone from AEW, I think is a bit of a miss for AEW because, one, Cody was one of their biggest talents that they had. Starting out, you can arguably say Cody Rhodes was their top three, big star they had starting out after Jericho and after Moxley. Now, with the acquisition of Punk and Bryan, Moxley still being there, and a couple others, you can say Cody's pecking order was kind of on the ladder in terms of star power. Kind of took a falter, kind of took a few steps down. Not down the ladder where, Orange Cassidy is, but he probably went from top 3 to now maybe top 5, top 6 guy on the roster. But what I do think Cody brought to AEW, that I think AEW lacks in some aspects, is the storytelling. Cody Rhodes came across me as a story guy. And we could say that, hey, some of his storylines or his booking recently in AEW, either strange or kind of questionable or just not that great compared to the first year and a half of AEW being on television. Could be, it's arguable. But I think that Cody Rhodes brought a element of storytelling, even if it was just his own thing and not compared to everyone else's. I don't know. I'm not saying Cody Rhodes is a great genius, but in professional wrestling, but I do think he brought a little something to AEW in that regard in terms of, like I said, the story aspect that I think AEW kind of needs to beef up more and needs a little bit more long-term planning, booking, or assistance with. Because I think just doing it between Tony Khan, Marshall, JT Marshall, and I forgot who else is part of the booking for AEW. Maybe the Bucks and Omega to a degree. I don't think they need a little bit something, a little bit more. But that's just my thoughts on that. Where does Cody go from here? I don't know. The sky's the pie. There are talks. There have been reports. None of it really being confirmed. But it's speculated that Cody's next step, along with his wife, is WWE. It could be. I mean, we've seen people, have far worse situations from WWE, say they'll never come back, and they end up coming back to WWE. But so Cody wouldn't be the last person, to have his issues or creative differences from WWE, leave and then come back. I think for WWE, it'll be a coup because not only is this somebody that they got from AEW, but this was an EVP. This was a guy who had some backstage power in AEW, in Cody Rhodes. So for them, it's a big get coming from AEW. Like I said, what Cody does next, I don't know. The sky's the limit. On AEW's aspect, I think this opens up a chance for other people to step up. Do I think Cody would be terribly missed? I think right now where AEW are now in terms of their roster and more people they continue to bring in, I don't think Cody's presence will be missed all that much from AEW. I really don't. But I do think that it will be an opportunity, should be an opportunity for other people to step up and take that spot. Definitely. Because bar none, like I said, regardless of what, you think of Cody Rhodes, he was one of their, I guess you could say, poster child. He would go out and do, the interviews for AEW and kind of be like the mascot and the cheerleader for AEW, which he definitely was, especially in year one of AEW. I mean, the guy was, like I said, the mascot for AEW, and talk about it being a revolution, and which I also thought was interesting too, that Kenny Omega had commented on the interview with the Observer that Cody was always the one who made the narrative of AEW being us versus them, being AEW versus WWE, but him and Khan and the Bucks were never like that. They were never about AEW versus WWE. That Cody had always made that a thing. I do believe that's true. Granted, we have heard you'll see here some pot shots thrown at WWE since Cody's absence from AEW, or since his leave from AEW over the past couple of weeks. But I still think I do think that was interesting. But regardless of the case, what do you guys think about Cody Rhodes leaving AEW? Do you think it a big loss for AEW, or do you think it really doesn't matter? Where do you think Cody Rhodes will go from here post AEW? Will he go back to WWE? Will he go to the Indies? What do you guys think? I'd like to hear your thoughts in the box below. Do me a favor, hit the video, like, subscribe. Peace.